What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. People have been calling for Grand Theft Auto on the Switch or the Switch 2 for quite some time, and yesterday in a new report, we got almost that. In fact, it's probably the craziest story we've seen so far for the Switch 2 launch, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we do have Microsoft talking a bit here about the next generation platform that they're targeting, even with a strategic partnership and even some other details around how exactly they're approaching it with Xbox. And we do have Marathon, which, shocking no one at this point, has been delayed, but really people now are asking, is it ever going to come out? So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. We're gonna start today with some news for RPG fans, which you can see this posted up. This is over on RPGsite.net, saying NIS America just announced that The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon is now also coming to Switch 2. And the release date has been delayed to January 2026 for all platforms. Now, from what I saw, it was supposed to be coming out sometime in the fall in the West for PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC. Still going to all those platforms. Now go ahead and add on Switch 2, but now looking towards January 2026. On top of that, we did get a look at some of the additions they were offering here, with one, of course, being for the Switch 2, and people then zoomed in and yeah, it's more than $100 for an edition that comes with a Game Key cartridge. Still don't really get that with the whole collector's edition thing. It seems strange with the audience that you're targeting here with this. They probably want everything on a cartridge, and in fact would opt to spend more money for a 64GB cartridge to ensure that everything is there on the cartridge, and they're not necessarily downloading to a dummy card really at that point. But at least now we see that there is a Switch 2 version. You just have to wait for this game in January now instead. Also, we have some surprise additions to Amazon Prime Gaming. This is their subscription service each month that goes along with Amazon Prime, where they just give you different games. Like 80%, 90% of the time, they're on PC, but they're through GOG, which means they're DRM free, so there's really no reason to not claim these. So let's take a look at the 6 games that they decided to just surprise drop. In fact, these are all available right now. I think it's part of their like Amazon Prime Day that just got announced. They're doing this as kind of a promotion for it. But either way, you can see this list. This is posted up over on VGC. We have Dungeon of the Endless Definitive Edition. That is through Amazon Games app, okay? So that one's not GOG, unfortunately. But then we have Saints Row 2, which is a classic. That's one of the good Saints Rows, okay? That's on GOG. We have Saints Row 4 Reelected. Another good one, I'd say. It was fun. It's another GOG code there. Star Wars Rebellion, also on GOG. Tome on GOG. And Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered over on GOG as well. Again, what happens here is when you go into your account on Amazon Prime to Prime Gaming, you'll get a code that you can then redeem on GOG. So if you're thinking about getting even a PC gaming handheld someday down the road, or you just have a gaming PC, there's really no reason not to go in if you have Amazon Prime now, just to get the code and then go ahead and redeem it. So just want to give you a heads up. Always good to take full advantage of any of the subscriptions you're paying for. And in this case, you're just getting games, so you may as well. Oh, and we do have the Switch 2, which has proven to be quite compatible with a number of devices, specifically different cameras, even using a phone as a camera. That seems to work. But when it comes down to a mouse, it looks like you can go all the way back to the 90s. And for example, you can see this. Use the Super Nintendo mouse. Now, this was shown over on Nintendo's X account. And, I mean, look, you need adapters and all kinds of stuff to make it happen, so it's not practical. Basically, no one's going to do this. Although, I'm sure there's one person out there right now watching that is like, oh, I'm going to go do that right now. I have the Super Nintendo mouse. I can make it work. Really cool that it is actually compatible. But I think it's just fun to see all these weird discoveries around the Switch 2 and how it just seems to work with like all these different devices that you wouldn't even necessarily expect. So there you go. Couple of people out there who want to hook up their Super Nintendo mouse. As long as you have all the cables that you can daisy chain together, you could technically make it happen. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with, I have to imagine, the craziest story so far around the Switch 2, and that involves the heist of nearly 3,000 Switch 2 systems while they're in transit to GameStop from apparently Nintendo out in Washington. We can see this, though, is posted up. This is a report over on 9 News saying the theft was reported around 8 a.m. June 8th at the Love's truck stop at 1191 South 1st Street in Bennett. A semi-truck driver reported that during a pre-trip inspection, he discovered that the trailer had been broken into and several pallets of newly released Nintendo Switch 2 consoles were missing. In all, 2,810 consoles were stolen, bringing the total loss of the stolen goods to more than $1.4 million. Wow. The driver told deputies he was en route to a GameStop store in Grapevine, Texas from Nintendo of America in Redmond, Washington. Told deputies he did not know what was in the trailer, only that it was games or toys. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're wondering, is this at all related to that viral tweet that RGT put out, which you can see? This was on June 3rd, where he was getting ready for the midnight launch of the Switch 2. He's been talking about these Switch 2 systems falling off of trucks for quite some time in his videos. So, I mean, you could be the judge there. Is it possible that a person who struggled his way and eventually was defeated by the Nintendo Switch Labo to be able to pull off a potential Fast and the Furious heist while a semi-truck is speeding down the highway? I mean, that's for the authorities to figure out at this point, so they can check that out. It is linked down below in the sources if they want to investigate further. But in this case, though, it's, like I mentioned, strange situation, but I don't know, it seems weird that the driver wouldn't necessarily, I guess they wouldn't necessarily know what exactly is back there, but the fact that during transit, whether it's through different stops, people were able to legitimately just break into the truck, steal pallets of Switch 2 systems. Specifically, that seems to be the thing that like is mentioned as the part that's really missing here. Like everything else is kind of still there, but the Switch 2 systems weren't. Yeah, strange stuff there. People keep asking for Grand Theft Auto. Almost got it. Although I guess technically it's not Grand Theft Auto because technically that means you're stealing a car. And in this case, they stole like 2,800 Switch 2 systems. Still though, I guess at this point, Nintendo will work to track down all these different devices since they're usually logged by serial numbers, and that being 2,800 of them, even if they're split out, it's a good chance they'll probably track down at least a few of these as we go along. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, who wanted to talk a lot about their next generation platform in roughly a minute and 20 seconds. Is almost like this little commercial that was put out with Sarah Bond talking about what their plans are here soon in collaboration with AMD, which you can see some of that video here. And they say they established a strategic multi-year partnership with AMD. This titled Xbox plus AMD Powering the Next Generation of Xbox. They're co-engineer silicon across a portfolio of devices, which includes the next generation Xbox console. They're looking for graphics innovation and player experiences being enhanced with the power of AI, maintaining compatibility with the existing Xbox library, and they mentioned that they're going to be working with the Windows team to make sure it's the #1 platform for gaming, but also mention other storefronts, like you're not locked down to a specific store, that being the Xbox store, which of course alludes to the idea of, say, Steam or Epic Game Store, different launchers being available for you to shop on despite it being a console or an Xbox console. Now, we're not really sure of the year that it's coming out, although some are wondering, it might just be next year, like 2026, if you consider that, I mean, the 25th anniversary of the Xbox brand, the Xbox system, is in November 2026, and we believe that there is a Halo game launching there, so it does kind of add up, but that also feels very, very soon, although it's 6 years. I mean, for the longest time, we were getting 5-year cycles for games, but that was also when cycles for games, like, so the game system, 5 years, but to get a game out the door, 1.5 to 2 years, that was way back in the day, right? GameCube, Xbox, PS2 era. Now it's an entire generation, it feels like 5 to 7 years for some of these bigger games to come out, which is the entirety of the system's lifespan. So because we're getting fewer games from the notable big publishers, I'll say, big developers, you do have a lot of smaller games that fill in the gaps, and that means that people are going to look at each generation as only having a few big swings, we'll say, from some of these first-party platforms. But when I look at Microsoft right now, it doesn't really feel like they're trying to sell an Xbox. I mean, think about the Xbox Series X. It's $600 for that system. It's not really that appealing necessarily to the mainstream when you look around and you see that the PlayStation 5 is cheaper, the Switch 2 is cheaper. We're getting close to the territory of maybe building a PC is just a better option. It could be cheaper down the line, especially since you don't have to pay for online and it's just an open platform. And that is what it feels like Microsoft is working towards now, to unify Windows as their real next generation console, next generation platform. But it would also work on what I think is, at this point, just going to be a traditional box. It sounds strange because we heard all about that handheld talk. I think they're just going to show up with another Xbox Series X and then kind of open up the OS and maybe even this specific silicone that apparently is going to work across a wide range of devices for partners to make their own system. I kind of think that's what's going to happen. And from there, they'll maybe spin off to different handhelds, like we see them partnering with Asus for the Xbox ROG, Ally X, and so on there. So I kind of think that's the strategy now. And who knows, maybe we won't have to wait too much longer. Potentially a year and a half? I still think 2027 would be about right, a 7-year cycle, but Microsoft seems like, from where I'm looking right now, that they're ready to move on from the current Xbox Series system, so I guess we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Marathon, which has officially now been delayed. I know it's not really shocking anyone at this point. I think we were expecting it to be delayed, especially after everything that's gone on, where there's just been poor reception online, these closed alphas just not really going well, and then rising competition around it, I guess, with things like Arc Raiders, but also the entire fallout and the scandal around this art theft stuff and plagiarism is just not great right now for Marathon to launch in September. So we can see this is posted up. This is over on their website where they have this update saying, through every comment and real-time conversation on social media and Discord, your voice has been strong and clear. We've taken this to heart and we know we need more time to craft Marathon into the game that truly reflects your passion. After much discussion with our dev team, we've made the decision to delay the September 23rd release. We're using this time to empower the team to create the intense, high-stakes experience that a title like Marathon is built around. This means deepening the relationship between the developers and the game's most important voices, our players. I gotta be honest, I really don't know how they turn around the Marathon ship at all right now. I feel like at this time, there's just sort of a perception online around this game, and it's still going to be this extraction shooter, which is already a stopping point for many, many people out there. And then beyond that, is it going to become less casualized and try to then cater to more of the hardcore crowd that it feels like they've already bought in and staked their claim with something like Escape from Tarkov? I'm not sure if there is necessarily a lane there for them right now, but maybe if they delay out into, I'll say like March, April maybe of 2026, they'll be able to get away from some of the stuff that's going on now. The internet moves on to the next thing and so on, and then maybe it'll be less of a hostile environment for them to launch. I just don't really see it for Marathon right now, and it's just not great news for Bungie, obviously, where they stand, because they kind of need Marathon to work since they really haven't been working on what would have probably been the obvious choice, a Destiny 3, a new starting point for people who are just not going to look at Destiny right now, because if you try to get into it, it's almost disastrous. There's so much stuff that they throw at you. It's 200 some odd gigabytes to download, and even then, you're not really sure where to start. So tough situation for Bungie. We'll see if they're able to navigate it as they go along, figure out a new release date. I'm assuming first half of 2026, but I guess we'll see. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a situation around the Switch 2 that kind of falls into sort of like launch day or early adopter defects with systems. Okay, so we've seen this before with different devices, some that are just more rampant than others. In this case, to me, it seems pretty straightforward as something that's maybe not as widespread, but could be affecting some of you out there, so I wanted to bring it to light. So we can see this is posted up. This is overall Nintendo Life, as they are noting some of these cases from places like Reddit, for example. Others posted up on different social media. I saw one on X, but in this case, it looks like the Switch 2, some of them have a swollen battery. All right, so they say here that they did reach out to Nintendo after their Switch 2 arrived and noticed the back panel was bulging slightly. So if you have a Switch 2 right now and you notice that is happening, most likely, yes, the battery inside is starting to puff up, we'll say, and that should be completely covered under warranty. In fact, this person, Tom Byte 3, says that Nintendo mentioned that they are investigating it further. And I mean, look, batteries puff up. We've seen it before with phones, which I think is a great example there as to where this can happen. But it could number of different things. And a lot for me looking at this, most likely manufacturer defect, because I don't think there's necessarily enough time for it to be just like you'd have extreme temperature. Well, I mean, this happened in the course of a couple of days after launch, it seems like, and most likely changing seasons haven't happened, or maybe a huge snowfall and the thing's just out in the snow for some reason, or vice versa. It's incredibly hot. So to me, this is one of those things where it falls into like that 1% category, and you want to reach out to Nintendo to get that resolved. Don't try opening it or anything like that. Not that you should necessarily think about the battery exploding, but I just wouldn't mess around with it. It's under warranty. They should be able to take care of it, and they should be able to do it pretty quickly. I would like to think that's not something like, oh, you'll get it back in a month. No, it's a launch day system. It happened right away. You got to kind of expedite that. But get in touch with Nintendo and get that resolved as soon as you can. If your system is puffing up in the back, and I don't mean like look at it and just get a ruler on it and try to get a level. It should be pretty obvious, okay? Like blatant even, to where, okay, this thing has like it's growing in the back of the Switch 2. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, Microsoft has announced they are making a next generation system. What form do you think it'll take when it releases? 35% do think traditional home console, but look, 42% think there could be multiple systems. A home console, a handheld. Even the hybrid system got 20%. No dedicated handheld, which, yeah, we have the news and stuff about that, but you know, a hybrid console would be interesting. I don't know if Microsoft would necessarily go that route, because clearly there are limitations when it comes to thermals, how much power you can put into it, the kind of power draw. I mean, the two-tier launch would make sense, but I think what's going to happen is Microsoft will just go ahead and tackle the default console system. And then they'll allow partners to, if they want, like Asus, go full on with a handheld like their ROG line, and they'll have the Xbox button and the new OS, everything there. I think that's kind of the path forward. Let third-party manufacturers, partner manufacturers, really go crazy with all kinds of configurations. And they'll sit, I think, somewhere in the middle there in terms of pricing and even just overall performance with their Xbox Series XXX. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Lewis, who says, I hope this means we're going to get a Metroid Prime 4 Direct. Yeah, I would be shocked if we didn't get that at this point. It's just, Metroid Prime 4 clearly cost Nintendo a lot of money. I mean, it's still in development. It wasn't ready for launch. Would have made a very good launch game, by the way. Just the fact that it shows off everything about the Switch 2. Mouse functionality, 120 FPS, really sharp and clean looking visuals that fit in nicely to a big screen 4K display. It's all there, but not at launch. So in that case, if it is August, September, November, then yes, I think you should do a direct to really put the spotlight on it, to give it the best shot possible to sell a bunch of copies. One, to recoup its overall cost, but also to work on taking that Metroid franchise to the next level. Metroid Dread, right around 3 million copies. I think a big 3D adventure shooter game like Prime 4 should be able to do much more than that even. So here's hoping they have plans for not only the Direct, but maybe some custom control Joy-Cons. I mean, I don't know if they're going to play around with the colors Joy-Cons right away, but that would be kind of cool to see some kind of themed Joy-Con too, even if it's like the similar setup here, but they have etchings or something cool just to make it a little unique. It'd be fun to have something like that go alongside of Metroid Prime 4 for the Switch 2 to celebrate its release after having to wait more than 8 years. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see how that GameCube NSO controller turned out. Well, I did an entire video breaking down my thoughts on it, as well as a teardown for it. I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.